And then now in verse 22, continuing on, Peter is still speaking to this great crowd of Jews. And he says, "For Moses truly said unto the fathers, A prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me." Now that, of course, takes us all the way back to the role of Moses in the life of Israel. He was the deliverer. He was, in so many words, the Redeemer. He brought them out of slavery. He led them out of captivity and brought them unto Abraham's God. And so even as Moses then was the deliverer in type back there, now Peter says the real one has come. You've killed him. God's raised him from the dead. But he is still willing to come and yet fulfill the promises. And now here's where I, not too many years ago, saw for the first time myself that Peter is still on covenant ground. And it's so obvious. And I'd missed it for ever so long. As you read on now then, verse 23, "It shall come to pass that every soul who will not hear that prophet," that is the one Moses foretold, which was the Christ, "shall be destroyed," or cut off from among the people. In other words, what did Jesus say in John's Gospel chapter 3? "Except a man be born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of heaven." All right, now this is a follow-up on that. If Israel would have repented, there would have been no unbelieving Jews go in. But as we're going to see in the closing verse of this chapter, the admonition is for every Jew to become a believer, and then there would have been no problem. But no unbeliever will ever go into the kingdom of heaven. All right, so he says in verse 24 then, and here's the verse that just totally changed my thinking quite a few years ago. "Yea, all the prophets from Samuel and those that follow after, as many as have spoken," now that includes all the Old Testament prophecies, "they've likewise foretold of these days." Now stop and think for a minute. I said in the last program, this is only about 8 or 9 weeks after the crucifixion. And so you go on back into the 3 years before. So we're talking about only 3 years and a few months of what Peter is making reference to. That all of these things that have happened in these days were all in fulfillment of what God had said. Now going into the next verse, 25. When God said, "You are the children," or Peter is saying it, "but you are the children of the prophets." Repeat the subject. "You are the children of the covenant, which God made with our fathers." See how that excludes Gentiles? Gentiles aren't in the lineage of Israel. It just won't fit. You cannot push them into the Gentile nation. Into the Israeli nation. They're Gentile. But this is Jewish. And so he said, "You are the children of the prophets and of the covenant which God made with our fathers, when he said unto Abraham, and in thy seed shall all the kindreds of the earth be blessed." Now, of course, that was through the work of the Messiah, but through what nation did the Messiah come? Israel. And Israel was to be the vehicle all the way along. Now, I didn't have time in the last program, but I'm going to do it yet. Go all the way back to Isaiah. I think it's been a long time since we've done this on the program. We do it periodically in our classes. And I'm sure I've done it at least once or twice in the last 4.5 years, but it's been a long time. Isaiah chapter 42, and we'll just start at verse 1. Isaiah 42, verse 1. Because I want everyone to get the concept now that God has not forgotten about the Gentile. Oh, he's been dealing only with the nation of Israel, to be sure. But he still has the Gentiles in the picture. But, like so much of Scripture indicates, it's all tied to the nation of Israel. How many times? Well, now let's see. Keep your hand in Isaiah. Honey, I throw a curve at her all the time, don't I? Keep your hand in Isaiah. Go back to Deuteronomy again. Because some of these verses just have to be seen over and over before we can finally understand what it's talking about. I hope I can find it. Maybe I goofed. No, 32. Deuteronomy chapter 32. Boy, it almost makes me sweat when I think I can't find a verse. Deuteronomy 32, verse 8. Deuteronomy 32, verse 8. No, we've looked at it a lot of times in our classes, I know. When the Most High divided to the nations, plural, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people, that is, of all the other nations. He set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. Isn't that something? So who is at the very core of the whole human experience? Israel. See? God's covenant people. They're at the core. Everything else is going to fall in place as it begins with Israel. And even today, why is that little nation postage stamp size on the globe, in the news, every day? Why is the whole world concerned about Israel making peace with their neighbors? Well, they don't know. But it's a sovereign God at work. And the nations stumble over Israel. They'll stumble over Jerusalem until Christ comes and becomes the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But until then, the world can't comprehend how and why this little nation, only a few million people, are the litmus of the whole operation. See? And here it is. All right? Now then, come back, if you will, to Isaiah 42. And so God was only planning to deal with the Gentiles all the way up through the Old Testament through this covenant people. They were going to be the ones that would take salvation to the Gentiles. Isaiah 42, verse 1, Behold my servant, who I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. Singular. He, singular, shall bring forth judgment or rule to the Gentiles. So who are referring to? The Christ, the Messiah. See? All right, come on over to the same book, Isaiah, but now to chapter 49. Isaiah 49. And drop down to verse 6 and 7. And just watch what these verses are saying, plainly. And he, God, said, It is a light thing that thou shouldst be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee a light to what people? Gentiles. See? That's what God's mind was set on, that Israel would take his light to the Gentiles. That thou mayest be my salvation, how far? To the end of the earth. See? Thus saith the Lord, verse 7, the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One, the Messiah. To him whom man despiseth, to him whom the nation abhorreth, to a servant of rulers, kings shall see and arise, princes also shall worship, because of the Lord who is faithful and the Holy One of Israel, and he shall choose thee. All right, staying in Isaiah, go to chapter 59. Chapter 59. I wish people would just get this straight. And that just makes the book of Acts come alive, just like putting it under a microscope. And it just jumps at you when you understand that this is how God had originally laid it out to the nation of Israel. Now in his total purpose, as Paul speaks of it in Ephesians, in the eternal purpose, of course, he is looking beyond all this to when he would go to the whole human race without Israel, which he has done. But first things first, we got to take it as the Scripture unfolds it.